film buffs? It's that time again. This is Straight Shooter, and I'm here at Team Sound Studios, ready to shoot my next review. Today, my spoiler red band review will be of Joker. Yes, this movie was highly anticipated. It does not fit into the grand scheme of the DC Extended Universe. It is a standalone Joker movie about the Joker, Batman's Joker. It stars Joaquin Phoenix, Robert De Niro. So, the Joker doesn't really have his own definitive origin. There are many different origins that have been depicted within the Batman universe, whether it be in comics, in cartoons, movies, animated movies, live action movies. And none of them have really been like, they've said, okay, this is the origin of the Joker. This is canon. So Todd Phillips, the guy who directed the movie, decided, why don't we make our own version of the Joker? And that's what they did. They did an original story about the Joker character. In this movie, the Joker is a character named Arthur Fleck. We find out that he was in a mental asylum in Arkham, actually, and he was released. He lives with his mother, and he's living his life. He's working as a clown. He twirls signs and stuff like that. But he's also writing material because he wants to be a stand-up comic. And he loses his job as a clown, and then he decides to pursue being a comic more full-time. He and his mom watch the show, The Murray Franklin Show. Robert De Niro plays Murray Franklin. It's his dream to be on the show, and there is this fantasy that he has where he's on the show in the audience, and he picks him out, and then he gets a call to be on the show, and Murray asks him to be on the show and goes backstage and all this stuff. And there's a lot happening in the movie besides that. Like, he's on a train, and apparently he laughs because he has a medical condition. Like, he can't help it or something, so the people on the train harass him and they beat him up. Like, what's so damn funny, clown? And he's like, I can't help it. And they're like, fuck you, clown. And they start kicking him, beating on him, and he ends up getting a gun. Well, he had a gun because one of his clown co-workers gave him the gun and said, Gotham isn't a safe place. You need to protect yourself. So he took his gun out and he shot all of them and killed them. So then we have this little bit of drama between him and the police. They're trying to question him, and he keeps dodging them and all this stuff. And then there's this connection with Thomas Wayne. Apparently Thomas Wayne had a relationship with his mother, Penny Fleck, and he thinks he might be Thomas Wayne's son, Bruce Wayne's older brother or something like that. The climax of the movie is basically he gets to go on the Murray Franklin show, and he realizes that he brought him to the show not because he thought he was talented, but to make fun of him. Because Murray watched a clip of him doing stand-up, and he was making fun of him. So he gets on the show, he starts talking to Murray, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he shoots him in the head. And it's supposedly live TV, and then he starts this whole revolution where all these people in clown masks, they're all rioting, and one of the clowns in the clown mask goes into the alley where Bruce and his parents get out, and he shoots Thomas and Martha Wayne. But here's the problem. You can't really rely on anything you're really seeing in the movie, because they don't really tell you what's real and what's not. There are a couple things that they do tell you aren't real. Like, there's this relationship that he was having with a neighbor, and then there's this scene later on where he's in her apartment and she's like, don't you live down the hall? So obviously that was a fantasy. The part where he's in the audience on the Murray Franklin show, that was a fantasy. That didn't happen. And the movie leaves it up to interpretation as far as what do you think is real? What do you think happened? What do you think didn't happen? And since I've seen the movie, I've seen news articles, I've read interviews, even with Todd Phillips, and he said there's no right or wrong answer. It's up to interpretation. And I guess that kind of just bugs me because there's some really cool things that happen to the Joker and that involve the Joker as well that would have been really cool for an origin story for the Joker. But you don't know if any of it's real. There's this one part that I think is probably the cutoff point from when, okay, this is when it stopped being real and the rest of the movie was just a fantasy. He gets to his apartment, he killed the three people in the train, and police are looking for him, and he gets to his apartment, and he just sits down and he starts laughing, and then you see police lights all around the outside, and you know that they're about to come in his apartment. And then the next scene is he just carries on and does all this other stuff. And I think how I see it, that's the point where the reality ended and the dream started. But I don't fucking know. I mean, there are people saying that he never left Arkham Asylum because that's where he ends up in the end. He's in Arkham and he's being interviewed. They lead you to believe that he killed the person who was interviewing him, and then he was running in the halls and orderlies are chasing him. He's trying to escape. I think Joaquin is a very good actor, and there's no denying that his performance in the movie was top-notch. The cinematography was really good. I like the fact that even though it's a period piece, it took place in the 80s, it doesn't really feel like it's the 80s. You don't see a lot of spandex, you don't hear a lot of the cheesy music, and you don't see a lot of the fads that were happening in the 80s. It was just like, okay, it took place in the 80s because that's when he came about. But at the same time, this is where the divisiveness of this movie comes in, I think. People are praising the movie because of the performance and how dramatic the movie is. And yes, if you look at it from the standpoint where it exists in its own world, it doesn't really have much to do with anything that was already established with Batman or his rogues gallery or whatever have you, then yeah, it was a really good movie. But I'm a fan of the comics. I'm a fan of Batman. I'm a fan of his rogues gallery. I'm a fan of the Joker as he exists in Batman's world. And in that respect, the movie was a big letdown. So it's hard not to look at it from that aspect, especially since I've seen every Batman movie in theaters, okay? From Batman 89 all the way till Batman versus Superman and Justice League. I've seen every one of them in theaters. I'm a big fan of the movies. I'm a big fan of the character. And I'm a big fan of the Joker. Heath Ledger's Joker will be the one to be compared to as he exists in Batman's universe. This Joker will exist in Batman's universe. But you don't know also within the movie if this is going to be the Joker because Bruce Wayne was a kid and Arthur Fleck is already a middle-aged man. So by the time Bruce becomes Batman, he's going to be like an old man. So I don't know how that would work. Maybe there is another person that Arthur Fleck inspires and he's going to be the Joker. But that's assuming that any of this is happening in the real world as far as Batman is concerned. You just don't know. The movie's too ambiguous for me. And as much as I like the performances, as much as I like the set designs, and as much as I like the drama of the movie, as a Batman movie, or, okay, as a Joker movie, this is not the Joker movie that I would have hoped to see. And I guess that's probably the best way I can say it. How I see it, I give the movie... Okay, I'm torn between a C plus and a B minus. I'm on the fence between those two scores. Just because there's not enough information given to the audience about Joker himself or how he's going to turn out, how he's going to be a threat in Gotham, how he's going to be the clown prince of crime. There's too much that people know about the Joker for this to really be the Joker as we know him. So I respect the fact that the filmmakers decided to do their own Joker, but I just wish they would have realized that the Joker really needs to have the yin to his yang, which is Batman. And Bruce Wayne does exist, but like I said, he was a kid in this movie. The movie was decent. I like Joaquin Phoenix's performance. He did a really, his laugh is dead on. His mannerisms are dead on. He was driven mad by the society. All the wrongness in Gotham is what turned him into the Joker. But it doesn't really connect with Batman or anything DC. And that's where I have the problem. They could have done this and made it part of the bigger picture and not just bottled within its own thing. And they chose not to. And in my opinion, it's just not the right call. Because if Joker was a B villain or a C villain or someone that wasn't big in the comics, wasn't big in the Batman universe, then this movie could work. Let's say it was Black Mask. Black Mask could have worked as its own standalone movie, and then maybe later they bring him back into the Batman universe or whatever. But they made this movie so that he didn't really fit in Batman's universe, because Arthur Fleck can't be the Joker when Batman is Batman. So there we have it. That's how I see it. And I don't really know what else to say. Did I enjoy the movie? Yes, I enjoyed the movie. But there's too much about the movie that doesn't make sense. It's too ambiguous. And I'm probably not going to get the movie when it comes out on Blu-ray or 4K or whatever it is. I probably don't need to see it again in theaters. And that's unfortunate because I really wanted to love this movie. And I can see why a lot of people are loving this movie. Because people may not be hardcore DC fans or hardcore Batman fans. And they're like, that's okay. The Joker is the Joker and this was a great Joker. And yes, Joaquin makes a great Joker. But the idea to separate him from the bigger picture, the bigger universe that the Joker is supposed to be in, not the right call in my book. So that's how I see it. This is review 1 of 2. Stay tuned because I got another one coming your way. See you in a bit.
Joker.